Good morning. Today is Friday, September the 19th, 2025, and we have a lot of news to cover today regarding the Trump administration and American politics. So let's just jump right into it. The Trump and Orban administrations create legal loopholes to prosecute Americans as foreign terrorists. Let's dig into this story. So the Trump administration announced yesterday plans to designate Antifa as a terrorist organization, despite legal experts confirming that the president lacks authority to designate domestic groups as terrorists. However, the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban of Hungary announced Friday that Hungary will also designate Antifa as a terrorist organization, following Trump's lead. This creates a dangerous legal precedent. While the U.S. law prohibits designating domestic terrorist organizations, it does allow prosecution of Americans who provide material support to foreign terrorist organizations under 18 U.S.C. 2339B. By having Hungary designate Antifa as a foreign terrorist organization first, the Trump administration could potentially circumvent domestic legal protections and prosecute American anti-fascist activists as supporters of foreign terrorism, rather than domestic political dissidents. This coordinated international effort between Trump and his authoritarian ally represents an unprecedented attack on American civil liberties and constitutional protections. Now, in the next story, Christian nationalist rise in federal government fuels anti-Semitism against Trump's Jewish supporters. A concerning pattern is emerging as Christian nationalist figures gain prominent positions in the Trump administration and federal agencies. At a recent National Conservatism conference featuring Trump appointees including OMB Director Russell Vought and SBA Director Kelly Loeffler, speakers openly advocated for a Christian American while acknowledging rising virulent anti-Semitism on the right since October 7, 2023. Conference chairman Joran Hazorny admitted he didn't think it would happen on the right, but was mistaken about anti-Semitism growing amongst conservatives. Despite promises of Judeo-Christian values, polling shows 74% of American Jews disapprove of Trump's job performance, with 72% considering him dangerous and 69% calling him a fascist. The irony is stark. Many Jewish Americans who voted for Trump are now experiencing the consequences of empowering white supremacist movements, as anti-Semitic incidences increased 21.2% globally in July of 2025 alone, with 143 incidents recorded in the United States. So I guess you reap what you sow when you hope and pray that, you get more money sent to a foreign country called Israel that will somehow make your life better by empowering people who absolutely hate you and were the cause of Nazi Germany. So after the low-hanging fruit is all done with, like the immigrants, the homeless people, the criminals, and the Muslims, and the Hindus, and the Asians, who do you think that they will come for after all of that? You'd better get yourself together and get back on the right side of history here. Now, more concerning news coming out of the Trump administration. Trump fires U.S. attorney for refusing to prosecute Letitia James without any evidence. President Trump is firing U.S. Attorney Eric Siebert for Eastern District of Virginia after Siebert refused to bring criminal charges against New York Attorney General Letitia James, despite a lack of evidence. After a 5-month investigation involving interviews with more than a dozen witnesses, federal prosecutors found no clear evidence that James knowingly committed mortgage fraud when purchasing a home in Virginia in 2023. The investigation reveals James consistently marked documents indicating the Virginia property would not be her primary residence, contradicting the administration's allegations. This firing represents an unprecedented abuse of prosecutorial independence, with Trump officials demanding charges against a political enemy without sufficient evidence. The slippery slope is now all the way slippery, as the Trump administration is clearly using the Justice Department as his own personal revenge tool. And this is a threat to everybody. Just imagine this situation. You run afoul of somebody in the federal government, and since all protections have been taken away, they can now come after you, even if you are MAGA and a Trump supporter. At the end of the day, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere, and it is a threat to every single American. White House plans board crackdown on liberal groups. The Trump administration announces plans for a comprehensive crackdown on liberal organizations following the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Vice President J.D. Vance promised to target major liberal foundations, including the Ford Foundation, the George Soros Open Society Foundations, with administration considering using RICO acts, laws traditionally used against organized crime. The crackdown aims to classify certain left-wing activities as domestic terrorism, representing a significant escalation in targeting political opposition. Now listen, if you like George Soros or don't like him, if you like the Ford Foundation or don't like him, at either rate, the point is, once the federal government is on one side, starts to target everybody on the other side, you have opened up the Pandora's box, because it may not be that the one side is always in power. And if you don't think the people on the other side won't want to retaliate when they get in power, they absolutely will. And this is the problem. So we have to get our act together. We all, as one, need to stand up to Donald Trump, whether you're on the conservative side or the liberal side, and we need to say no to him and make it clear that Americans will not stand for the federal government going after political opponents. We do not live in North Korea. This is not a dictatorship. This is a democracy. And every American should be concerned when the government starts to overreach and prosecute its political opponents. Trump's unprecedented media war and broadcast license threats. President Trump has identified his legal battles against major media organizations, filing a $15 billion defamation lawsuit against the New York Times and Penguin Random House over coverage he claims was designed to undermine his election prospects. More alarmingly, Trump stated that the federal regulators should consider revoking broadcast licenses from networks whose hosts criticize him. This follows ABC's indefinite suspension of Jimmy Kimmel Live and represents unprecedented threat to press freedom. Anyone that the Trump administration views as hostile towards him, they are going after. The head of the FCC also said that this is true, that they are not finished. And this is exactly why the support of independent media is so important. And we appreciate each and every one of you who are on the paid subscription. And if you're not, please consider doing so that we can continue to bring these stories to you without having to rely on any sponsorships. Now let's move to the next story. Climate change wreaking havoc as Trump dismantles environmental policies. A UN report revealed that climate change killed an estimated 16,469 people in the European cities during the summer of 2025, with researchers warning these preventable deaths will continue rising with continued fossil fuel emissions. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is systematically dismantling climate policies and now flatly denies climate science, moving beyond mere downplaying of global warming threats. The EU also missed a critical UN deadline for new EU emissions targets due to internal divisions. Now, in a bit of good news, court blocks Trump's health agency overhaul. A federal appeals court refused to allow the Trump administration to proceed with his planned overhaul of the Department of Health and Human Services, which would involve reorganizing several agencies and firing thousands of employees. This legal victory for opponents represents one of few successful challenges to Trump's broader government restructuring efforts. though the administration continues pursuing appeals to implement its sweeping changes to federal health agencies. The coordinated Trump-Orban effort to create a legal workaround for prosecuting domestic political opponents as foreign terrorists represents perhaps the most alarming authoritarian escalation to date. Those are your morning headlines here on the Daily Rumble. Thank you so much for being a follower and a subscriber, and we will see you in the evening edition as more news arrives.